Welcome to Peak Personalities. This is a series we'll be doing bi-weekly with me and Nathan. The concept will be going by one series at a time, talking about some of our favorite moments, and for now, we're covering Bleach. I am absolutely so stoked for this. I've been wanting to cover this character for a hot minute, and then they showed up in Camp for Your Own World, so then it's like, fuck. So now I finished all three of the books. I was like, we might as well knock it out of the park.
Oh, I hope I know this character. Oh my gosh.
You will know this character. The question is, can you guess the character?
This is Xyloparo.
No, fuck that guy. I hate that guy.
They show up and can't. Oh, freaking. The Hisagi?
Nah, we're not covering Hisagi. We're covering the man, the myth, the legend, the head of execution, Yukio Hans Volburna.
Ah! It's the freaking gamer nerd. Okay, alright, never mind. Alright, I'm good to go.
I think the only thing I really want to cover for the intro, Yukio, in a strange way, is a better exemplification of what it means to be a Fullbringer and the tragedies that they face than who is the earlier leaders with Ginjo and Tsukushima. So that's what I'm going to slowly but surely delve into over the course of this.
I can tell you're excited for this one.
I'm so hyped.
I knew it was gonna be a full bringer. Oh my.
So we're going to pivotal moments. I think there's two big moments that he has a pretty course-changing direction in the narrative when it comes from the anime. First of all is just being that training grounds for Ichigo while he's trying to master his full bring, which is nice and all. Not that worthwhile talking about, but the other thing that is worth talking about, since Ichigo's Fullbring is external, when those Fullbringers get a dosage of his powers, it kind of adds a new layer to them where things like Ruruka's and Yukio's powers that are kind of isolated become able to step into the physical realm. So Yukio starts to be able to transport people or grab things from the physical world that he wouldn't be able to otherwise. And in Thousand Year Blood War, with the combination of Ruruka and Yukio, they're able to transport a realm, a portion of the precipice world, to get Ichigo, Yoruichi, Orihime, and Chad to the new empire to try to fight Watch, which is a crazy power feat. And honestly, I think they've been stuck in limbo without Yukio and Ruruka there.
Yeah, I think they were really important to at least to that transition part of the story. He definitely has a dimension breaking ability, or dimension creating ability. So yeah, I agree. His powers are insane.
Yeah, and I really hope that sometime in the future we get some more out there and wild examples of how he can utilize his powers, because they're not really great for combat. I mean, his fight against Toshiro displayed how useless he can be in combat, but it's more of those supportive different angles on map mobility that make him really interesting and plot warping.
Yeah, I think the only one that actually showed any kind of that was probably Grammy. I think that's the only one I can think of.
So it's a really untapped field of powers in Bleach. It would be cool to see it expanded in the future. And then for strong character moment, this is where we're gonna start talking about the Fullbringers as a whole. So one of the things they encounter is most of the factions either have their own guaranteed set place in the world. Like Soul Reapers go to the Shinigami Academy and then they have this arete. Quincy's have their own interpersonal connections and seemingly had like their own factions and clans that they relied on for a while before their eradication. But Fullbringers are in this weird spot where they're spiritual. They don't connect to the things that happen in Soul Society. And they also don't really feel like they belong with the rest of the human race because of their power distinction. And while the Quincy most likely had some sort of culture where they look after each other and they hide in the normalcy of the world, think about how you watch call them the Invisible Empire. The Fullbringers kind of shun normal people, and it's more a damnation of everyone else that brings them together. And one such moment for Yukio is when he feels different than his parents. Instead of trying to connect with them on some common ground. He learns how to hack, and he learns how to get into his parents' bank accounts, brings them to bankruptcy, and takes over the business as a young child. So instead of finding a way to join, Yukio and the Fullbringers find a way to destroy the status quo. They raise the issue so much that they put a target on their own back, when if it wasn't for Ichigo's involvement with the Fullbringers, they probably would have been unmarked by the Serite, like, indefinitely.
Oh, yeah, easily.
So Yukio is a great example, I think, of self-destruction.
He definitely very independent, and I think that has a lot to do with. I mean, obviously, it has to do with his parents' neglect. Especially with how wealthy they were, and him being like in his own world and creating over his own world. His powers really reflect that, and I also agree that the Fullbringers, Kubo really did a good job showcasing them as kind of outcasts. That they're very an inclusive group, because you're a lot more looked into the Fullbringer arc than I. How do you think Yukio's worldview and perspective changed upon Ginjo's like betrayal?
You're talking about, because he betrayed them in more than one way, so I'm not sure what instance you're talking about.
Like towards the end, like right, the Fullbringer arc ends, and or not ends. They find out Ginjo's like, yeah, no, yeah, I'm stealing Ichigo's powers. I'm about to go. He's going crazy and whatnot. Yukio is still cold and independent, and but as we see, he does serve. He does have ways of like helping. Like he helps Ichigo and the gang to get to the Barbelt. And like, why do you think he did that? Why did you think he wanted to be involved? Do you think it has to do? What was the girl's name? Raruka, is that her name?
I think when it comes to Yukio, he just wants to maintain like his power and his agency, and if that's threatened, he'll step in. When you see the way he behaves in the Fullbring arc, he is always sitting on the outside, always hiding and avoiding others unless he's brought to it. And if he's not brought to it, he's not interacting with it. And if it doesn't threaten his status quo just remaining on the outskirts of it, he's not stepping in. But you watch trying to erase the realms threatens what Yukio wants. And that's like the only thing that brings agency for Yukio, is if his goal of just like maintaining his business and avoiding people is threatened, then that's when he steps in. Otherwise, he doesn't give two shits.
But I also feel like doesn't he revive someone?
No.
Giriko, is that his name?
Kiriko's dead. Dead.
He revived him.
No, he's dead.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. But yeah, then okay, never mind. Yeah, no, kid's still cold and ruthless.
Alright, moving on to biggest surprises. This is a Camp for Your Own World exclusive, so this is one of the things that made me definitely delay this until I finish the books. But I never thought about what happens to Execution once Tsukishima, Giriko, and Ginjo are dead, because it's really just like Jackie, Ruruka, and Yukio left.
Mm-hmm.
I always forget the brawler's name that fought Ikaku. But what happens to Execution after the events is Yukio becomes the leader of it. He is running all the business, and it becomes a cult. They start worshipping a greater being, and that greater being seems to be Aura Michibane, who is the additional Fullbringer that gets introduced in Camp for Your Own World. He is in charge of a cult that then empowers Tsunashiro and Hakone. They found a way to tie Fullbringers and humans in a way that would threaten the state of the world through connections. But what's so Fullbring about for me is almost all the Fullbring connections are layered with prizes and superficial threads.
Give an example.
So the main reason the Fullbringers latched onto Ginjo was this belief that he could find a way to relinquish their powers back in the day. And then when that goes astray, then it's like, okay, we're just going to make it happen again. But then Ginjo diverts that into trying to empower them to attack the Soul Society. To my understanding, none of them actually wanted to have to go at the Soul Society. So the fight that they were fighting for was completely different. And you can see that because they don't continue that goal when Ginjo's gone, that their goals lied elsewhere the whole time.
Yeah, Yukio wanted to just work on. He just stuck with his business. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all he did, at least far I remember. So you're talking about the Fullbringers in general, not just Yukio here, then, huh?
Yeah. I think Yukio's plot points kind of bleed into the whole theming of the Fullbringers.
That they're just outcasts looking for someone to help guide them.
Yeah.
Why do you think they were listening to Ginjo in the first place then? Because, like, why couldn't they say, notice, like, obviously Ichigo has some type of spiritual awareness or something?
Because Ginjo was there first.
Yeah, you're right.
For peak moments,
Yeah, what do you got for this one?
bro, we're going back to Camp for Your Own World.
Oh boy, all right. Well,
This moment was absolutely nuts to me. So Camp for Your Own World focuses on Hisagi trying to make his little editorial newspaper pamphlet about the Thousand Year Blood War, and he goes on this mission to the world of the living, and he's trying to get an interview with Urahara. And when he's there with Urahara, he gets attacked by Yukio, Ora Michibane, and their followers. And this is where we're realizing Ora Michibane has really unique Fullbringer qualities to her that makes her really tricky to fight. And as Hisagi's realizing this, he attempts to contact Soul Society. It doesn't go through. Why doesn't it go through? Because Yukio used his powers, Invaders Must Die, to lock down the entirety of Karakura Town, and he transports it in with his powers. And he also uses this to kidnap Urahara and send him to the main villain.
who was the main villain in Can't Figure Your Own World? I never read them, the final ones.
Sinashiro.
So why were the Fullbringers helping them?
Because Ora Michibane is the god, and in the sense of Yukio's cult, that he is now connected to execution, and she aligned himself with him. So Yukio is just kind of going with emotions. His de facto lead is leaning towards this big bad, so he's just doing it because what else is he gonna do?
We spoke about Yukio being very independent and doing things that only benefit him. What was the benefit of him then? Helping out the big.
I don't think Yukio is independent.
Really?
I think that's a false lie he believes about himself to cover up his reliance and desire for connection with other people.
So you don't see Yukio. What do you see him as then if he's not independent?
I think he's just getting by, honestly.
You think he's just living life?
He's trying to do his best, but he's kind of struggling. He just won't admit it.
Yeah, true. I mean, I can't believe this dude was still. I can't believe this dude's a villain now again. Yeah, I gotta finish Can't Figure Your Own World. That's on me. Did you finish Can't Figure Your Own World? How did anyone like how does Urahara escape that then?
But you have to read the books.
I mean, Yukio does have some busted abilities here. I mean, I'm not gonna buy the books. I just watch reviews on there.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, I will say. And then I guess we'll wrap up with favorite things about them. We're bringing it back with my favorite thing, and we're tying it. This is a throwback to episode 3. Yukio, my favorite thing about him, he's autistic. That's simple. 2 words.
He is autistic.
He revels in isolation. He has really bad vocal timing. He's either like saying things under his breath, or he's so loud that it's disruptive to whatever else is happening. Overly invested in one thing. His special interest is his business. Literally everything else does not seem to matter to Yukio unless it's for his business.
So you don't care for his gaming I wouldn't say addiction or anything like that.
I mean, he's also very addicted to video games, which is quite autistic coded. I will say that.
It definitely is.
I think it was too obvious for me to say, but it's out there now. The other thing that makes it pretty autistic coded is the brilliance to learn how to hack at a young age and the ability to have the intelligence to do something with that knowledge.
That is true. He didn't really have much else going for him at the time because he was alone. But
and the other thing is autism goes hand in hand with signs of abuse. So neglectful parents actually checks out pretty common there.
if I had to give my favorite things about him, well, obviously, my knowledge of the Fullbring arc is very limited, because it's not my favorite arc. But I'll go into a little bit of things about him. I really liked his design. I thought Kubo's powers for him were really unique. Having a basically a dimension like control, like a dimension controlling ability, is very unique at the time, and I thought it was really cool. He was definitely relatable, as that he had I'm gonna say a PSP at the time, it looked like, and during that time I had a PSP, so that's one reason why I liked him a lot. My disdain for him more came so like I just didn't like the Fullbringers, but for a Fullbringer, he definitely showed more signs of, like as you said, kind of just getting by and having like an autistic nature to himself that made him quite relatable, in my opinion. 'Cause I think everyone has a little bit of autism coded in there, but I just didn't know how to describe it. But that's all I got on Yukio.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I wanted to mention.
Do you want to speak on his battle against Toshiro? I don't even remember that
No,
much.
I already mentioned it. He's a fucking terrible fight.
I'd say it was he wasn't a good fighter. He's completely busted, but he doesn't really care too much for it.
Yeah, we'll just end it there.